Hello everyone. This is the third module in my course, Developing Web Applications. Last time we talked about, the very first pillar into building an ASP.NET MVC application, which is building the model, imagining how your data looks like, and trying to, as much as you can, to just capture the properties that matter to you, not necessarily the properties that there are so many properties out there and variables within one single object in the universe. You just want to extract the things that matters to you, and then you want to put that in your system and then start processing based on your business needs. So last time I created too many modules, and then I thought about this through the week. I don't want to complicate the application, not just yet. We're going to get into, I do not call this course a beginner level or an intermediate level or advanced level. No, it is as we go. We're getting more complex, the more we get deeper, the more I'm going to start to bring in experience from real life, about actual applications that I had to develop and put out there, what are the real things, that will that may pop up in your development while you're developing enterprise applications or business application, whatever. So let's do this. The second most important thing in ASP.NET MVC app is basically the controllers. So if you build a model, you want to build a controller to manage what happens to this model. So let's say we have models about the cups. We build cups. How do we build a functionality that allows us to add cups, remove cups, update cups? We want to change the names. We want to change the we want to delete the cup. We don't want it in our database anymore. We want to know all the cups that we have in a certain system. All these kind of things. So controllers are basically the very class that encapsulates all the functionality, the things that need to happen to an instance of your model. That's a little bit too complicated. Let me simplify this. Whatever you want your users to do with your model, put it on your controller. So there are two things. We know now that your model looks a certain way. It has ID, price, type, whatever. We built that last module. Now what happens from the outside world to that model? That's what the controller does. Controllers also get a little bit more complex and deeper than that. We'll get to that point. So how do we build a controller in an ASP.NET MVC application? There is a folder in here called controllers. And in this folder, you're just going to go ahead and say add a controller. So there are a couple of things here. You have a lot of options. You could start with an empty controller. I don't know why anyone would start with an empty controller, because Microsoft Visual Studio with ASP MVC and plugins and frameworks, it comes in with things that do what you need to do in a controller. They call them the CRUD operations. CRUD stands for create, retrieve, update, and delete. So these are 4 operations that one may need to do, may or may not need to do on their model. So I don't know, why would you start with an empty model, with an empty controller? Never had to use it in my entire career. I usually go with using MVC5 controller with views, using an entity framework. So there are a couple of things here that are happening. Views is the third pillar in an ASP.NET MVC application. I don't want you to worry about that now. Using the entity framework. So there is a piece that supports your model. If you're going to update, delete, create, and delete and retrieve your model, you want to have some logic that adds and removes and updates and retrieves things from the database. Some people in the past, about 10 years ago, we used to have to write in SQL code and then link our SQL code through C#, you know, to the database and all that jazz. But we don't need to do that anymore. What we need to do, you know, these things, Microsoft introduced the Entity Framework, which is basically the ability to interact with the database without actually having to know SQL server language. You don't have to know SQL. You don't have to write queries. Sometimes you do, but not in a basic, very basic. Some enterprises do not require you, enterprise applications do not require you to go that deep. So you don't have to worry about that part. The part you're going to have to worry about is understanding how the entity framework works. So the entity framework basically is simply the way how you interact with it is a context class that inherits all the entity framework functionality. And then that very context class, when you instantiate that class, it allows you to interact directly with the model in your database. For instance, the context in here there's something here called application context. Let's let it build one from scratch. I don't even want you to see the already existing ones. Let's build one. So in the models here, I'm going to go ahead and build a context class. So it's going to be a C# class, and let's call it database context. Let's call it, I don't know, application database context. All right. What this is that name that was already used? Already contains. Okay, let's call it something else. Let's call it app context, because there's already something that is using that very same name. So let's call it app context. So what this class does, in order to make this class your repository, your first point of interaction with the database, you want to inherit DB context, which is something that comes in with the entity framework. DB context, I'm going to do control dot, and it's just going to inherit that. It's called data entity, right? I got the DB context. Now all I need to do is, I created the cup model. Now I want to create a point of interaction with the database with all the cups in the database. But you may ask me a question like, but I didn't create tables, I didn't create anything, I didn't put anything in the database that is related to cups. So why are, like, how does that happen? That's the magic in the entity framework. When you go and just add this class and you make it inherit the DB context from the entity framework, it is so easy for you when you go and say, let's build a property in here and we call it DB set. And that DB set is going to hold the cups. And I'm going to call it cups. That's it. Just by the very fact you did this, what the entity framework is going to go do is going to create a table for you. And that table is going to hold the very same properties that you have already established in here. So it's going to create you a table with ID, price, and type columns. And from that perspective, it will generate, based on that, it will generate your controller. So let's go ahead to the controllers and see how does that work. So I'm going here and I'm selecting MVC5 controller with views using the entity framework. So let's click on that guy. My model class, so I am building a controller to control what model. So we built the cup model. So I'm just going to go with that. And then what is the data context class? That's the class that we just built right now. I say app context. That's the one that we just selected. So by the very fact, now you get to select the controller name. I like cups controller. It seems perfectly well. So we're just going to go with that. As soon as I click add, yes, I need to rebuild my project. So it will create it will create an instance for my DB context. Okay, rebuild all succeeded. Let's try that again. Controller, building that, building cups, app context, and build. So the scaffolding is the magic that happens. The scaffolding, basically what it's doing right now, it's building the second and third pillar of an ASP.NET MVC application. And what it's basically doing, it's creating an index page that will list all the cups that you have on your system. It will build the details controller action that allows you to pull down all the details about a certain cup that you added to your system. It will also build you create for creating a new cup, editing the information of the cup, and this is the view. And I'll talk about the views at some point, but you will find here like 2 actions for each and every one, like create and create. The first action is when you view the page before you do any action on it. So just viewing the initial page of creating. The page that allows you to actually execute the actual action. So when you create, nothing is ready yet, it's just a view, but once you actually click create, it will go to that action and create things for you. Let's see why this guy is complaining. Is an ambiguous reference between this and this. So something is using app context. Let's give it, let's make it a little bit more special. So let's say app context that lives in demo models blah here. So that kills the ambiguity of. Now let's simplify this a little bit. So let's take that out. Oops. Let's take that guy out because demo is already there. I think we could also give it a, let's see, using demo models and then app context. Can I do that? Equals app context DB. Can I do that? Or can I take these two like this and just call it something? It's already used as a namespace. Something in that matter. Okay, don't worry about it. So originally, the reason why I was looking into this is that you can actually, like in C#, you can actually simplify something like system dot whatever into just one single name. I wonder if it's as or something like that. I'm not sure why. There, that's what I'm talking about. It was the other way around. So you could simplify the name of something. So I wonder if we can use it this way. Let's try this out. App context DB equal. And then demo models dot app context. Can I do that? Oh, I can't. So now I could just take that. So this guy is actually going to simplify it for me. So I could just do this. That's what I'm looking for. I don't want to use, I don't want to put the namespace in my code. I want my code to look cool. So it's like I have simplified, you know, instead of doing this every time, instead of using this here and here, I'll just use it one time and just give it a namespace. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so we have our database, and this database, you know, instance for app context DB it allows you to actually pull in, interact with the cups however you want. You could remove, you could add to them, you could actually do other operations with them, like database cups that, find, you want to find a cup. It's, let's see. We want to find a cup that has certain, or we could do, I think we could do something even better. We could do where cup name or price is less than $10, something like that. So that it'll give you all the cups that are less than $10. You could do something like that, or you could even simplify that, or order them, order them descending, whatever. So just by doing that, that allows you to just, I didn't type one code in the database. The entity framework is taking care of all that. So if it built that part for me and it also built the views, you will notice that the views in your app, you have cups folder have just been created, and you have create, delete, details, edit, and index. And we will see how that looks like right now, but let's go ahead to the shared view and let's add a reference to that new controller that we created. So I'm saying HTML action link, and what do we want to call it? Cups. And I guess cups. So maybe the index of the cups now, and just the cups controller, something like that. Let's launch our app and see how things will look like. This index is the action that's on the controller that is called index. So if you go to the cups controller that was generated for us, this index in here, this is what this index means. And when I added, you see that cups controller right here, what this guy is basically saying, go to the index page, the index action that lives in the controller that is called cups. If you look at the cups controller right here, there's index and there's cups controller. So we will ignore that controller part and it will just go to cups directly. So let's see, if I go to cups in here, so the first time it will take a little bit longer than any other time after that. And the reason why it's taking a little bit longer, it's because it's creating a database table that is called cups, and is putting in all these different columns for you. So look, we have an index in here and we have whatnot. I don't want us to worry about the views right now. I want you, if we go to the database in here, I expect to see in the database something called demo. That's the database name, or in the demo.models.something. So let's see if that's true. So I have too many servers going on. There it is. This is our guy right here. So in that guy, let's go ahead and look at the table. So it created a table for you and it called it cups. And if you look within that table, in the columns of that cups, you'll see type, price, ID. This is generated because you use this as your entity framework first contact with the database point. If you go to your model, whatever you did in your model here is what's going to show up in here. So you said an ID, price type. We had an ID, price type. Not just that, but all the actions that come around that to add, remove, update, and retrieve for that particular model data in the database. So let's go back to our app. It created to us very initial views, the index, and then I could create a new cup, And this drop down is basically the very enum that we created here. So it generated an entire view for you that allows you to that allows your users, the users of your app, to interact directly with your model without you having to actually code all that. But of course, we're going to have to code at some point within the views and within the controller to have a little bit of more tweaking to your app. So if you look here, can we create let's say we have a cup that's for $25 and is made in the USA. Create. So we're going to create. Now your database has a record for a cup that is 25 and if type USA. And if you go to the details, it will retrieve that from the database. If you want to delete that, it'll delete that for you. We'll get to that in a point. Let's go to the database and see how things look like. If you view the data on that very table that you created, here is the first record that you created. Now you may ask me, what is this type? Why the type is looking like that? I say because the enums, they come in, like we have chosen USA. If you hover over USA, it'll tell you to. And we will get to the part where we actually make our database data is also readable without actually having to add enums with their actual integral value. We want to add their actual stringified value. We'll get to that point. But other than that, now you have your model has a controller extended out of it. So let's test every single piece of it. So the first part is the creation. We created that. When you click create like this, you're actually hitting the first point of creation. So if you go to your controller, you're hitting that guy. Sorry, you're hitting that guy. The view of the create. You didn't really create anything yet, but you want to see the view that allows you to create. So the view that allows you to create is this guy. How do we know that this is true? If you put a breakpoint on this create view, and if we go back in here, once I click create, I should hit that breakpoint. So that means that I'm actually hitting that action, not this action. It's this action. And it's this action because it doesn't know what to create yet. Now, once you click create, you're actually hitting the second action method, which is this guy. So if I put breakpoint in here and I say this cup is like for $5 and it is made in Germany, and I click create, it will hit the other one, the second create, because okay, the view is prepared now. How do we actually create a new cup, which is hitting the second view? And what it basically doing, let's look a little bit deeper in here. It's giving your cup a new ID, and then it's adding your cup using the entity framework to the collection of cups, and then it's telling the entity framework, go ahead and save those changes, save the new collection. And when that happens, if you really want to get a little deeper in that, what it does is that it marks a new record, and the entity framework goes ahead and picks up that change and adds it to the database. So once I release this guy, I just let it loose, it added another cup for you in the database. If you go in here and if we refresh our data, we see two cups, one for $5 and one for $25, and they have these ID and all that jazz. Cool? So that's the first part. We created a cup. Now, let's try to update a cup. So if you click edit, you get to change whatever. So I'm saying the German cup is actually for $50. So let's go ahead. So that's again the view. Let me go back on that one. If you go to your controller, you have two edits here. You have one to view the item, and there's one to update the data that you have changed for this particular item. So what happens there? Let's see. When we view the item first, when we click edit, we're just viewing the data of the item with controllers that allows you to change the information of the item. That's the only difference between edit and detail. Edit shows you the very same information for this particular action. The only difference is that it offers you the controls in an editable way. It allows you to edit that information. So once we click the edit, we hit actually the first action. And then once we make our mind about the changes that we want to make, we're going to hit the second action, which inevitably shall talk to the entity framework, mark that particular cup that you have changed as modified because it's already in the database, and then sends that command to the database and says, save those changes. So let's keep an eye on our data in here. Now the German cup is for $5, we know that. Now if we go to edit, now we're hitting the view. That's the first thing, which is pretty cool. It goes in, it runs in some validation. It makes sure that the cup that you're trying to edit is not, the ID is not null, but also that this cup still exists in the database. And if it doesn't exist in the database, it'll just return I couldn't find it. So it did a find on the ID that you're looking for. And if this cup still exists, then view the information of that cup. So once you pass in, see in the view here, we'll talk about views later, but I'm just passing that cup to the view so the view would render that object in a better way. Now let's edit that information. Let's say that German cup is for $50 or mark or whatever the currency is in Germany. If you click save, now we're hitting the second action, and this action is the action that verifies that that will actually save the data on your cup. We will talk a little bit deeper about the model state and what does that mean. It just checks, you know, whether your model confirms with the model that you're trying to edit or not. And this binding in here, it's to protect your controller from having extra things passed in. It's called anti-forgery token, a little bit advanced subject. We'll talk about it at some point. But after that, it just redirects you to the index. So after we edited that German cup, it'll just shoot us back to the index where we see all the cups. So I'm just continue. So now we're back. The German cup have changed from 5 to 50. Is that the case in the database? It is the case in the database. The very same thing goes with the delete and the details. The details doesn't have, the details basically doesn't have any other action. It shouldn't have any more than just one action. Let's check out the details. The details, yeah, just one action because we don't really do anything. Like from the details, we don't go anywhere. So there is no action built on that. So is the index. We don't go anywhere. We don't actually execute. So the things that matters is the editing, deleting, and creating. But the details is just retrieving data that is already there. Same thing goes for the delete. It checks whether your cup already exists. So let's delete the cup that's made in the USA. If I click delete, the cup disappeared. I go back in here, look up my data, refresh my data, and the cup that's made in the USA is gone. Now you may get into more intelligent solutions. You want to control your view just a little bit. So let's say you want to display the currency of a certain cup based on a certain, let's say you want to change from USA to euros. This is when you have to do some little work on your controller. The main part of your controller that you want to control is the index and the details. But let's just start with the index. Let's say we don't want to display the value in US dollars. We want to display them in euros. Let's go see how much is a euro to a dollar today. Euro to dollar. So what 1.10. So 1.10, 1 euro is the equivalent of 1.10 US dollar. So that means we could just go ahead and divide the existing value by 1.10. Let's try that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's create a new list for cups, right? And euro priced cups equal new list of cups. All right, what do we want to do with that? Let's see why it's not recognizing. Oh, it just cup, sorry, a list of cup. List of cups, list of cup, yeah, it becomes a little bit confusing sometimes. So euro priced cups is the existing cups. What we're gonna do here, I want to do a for each on each and every one of these cups. For each. I don't want it to sync, I just want it normal. So for each cup, pick up the price of that cup come on. I need to add something. For using system collections, something like that. Something in that neighborhood. Oh, to list, and then for yeah. It doesn't come in, it comes in as a database set. Right. So for each cup, reassign the price of that cup to equal the actual cup price divided by 1.10. Right? We made the, okay, let's see what happened. What do you want? Right. So for this new list, let's now say the euro price cups dot add and put in the new cup. Now let's see why it's mad. So what I did here is basically saying for every cup of these cups, go on each and every cup of those, look at the price and divide that price by 1.10, so that'll give us the actual value in euro. And then instead of shipping out on the VU, the prices of these cups in dollars, ship them out to me in euro. So let's see how that works. So you see the functionality lives in the controller. I want to do something to that model, so I go to the controller to make that happen. I mean, it's up to you if you want to put the functionality anywhere. Some people just put it in a completely different library so they can assure reusability, which is fine. But for the purpose of this particular, so oh boy, 45. That's not right. That can't be right. Oh no, wait, it is right because it's because the original German cup actually costs $50. So the equivalent of that in euro is 45 whatever, and we could simplify that. What we can do, let's verify that. So the original cup was for $50. Sorry, $50. So that's about 45.59. We got here 45, 45, 45. So that makes this 5, that makes this 6, something like that, something in that neighborhood. We could actually get a little nerdy with this and try to use math to round up things. So whatever the value of this, we could just go and say math round, and we could throw in something like that. So now we could get a value that's somewhat similar to what we were seeing on Google. Let's try that out. Cups. 45. Oh, it just chopped it off. I didn't want that. I wanted it to floor something. Let's try that one out. Let's go look this up. Round doubles. It's math.round. Oh, I get to actually pass a parameter to round this up. That makes sense. Round. And I want to round it to 2 decimals. So let's see how that works. That's what I'm talking about. It tries to round things up. It's not perfectly the same as what Google does. Somewhat acceptable. It's up to you. You could dig more into how to make things look a little bit better. So that's that. We wanted to apply a little bit of control, on things. Now, someone may say, I want only the cups. I want to only display the cups that are from Germany. How do I go about doing that? So if we create a cup, that was a breakpoint. Let's create a cup from Mexico that is worth $30. Create that. We had too many breakpoints in here. Let's go ahead and just move these away. So we have a cup. We have cups that are from Mexico. Everything now is being calculated to the price of the euro price. So now we don't care about the euro price. We want to actually just have the cups that are only from Germany. Let's create more cups. Let's create one from USA, $10. And let's create a cup from, what else do we have in here? China, $20. And we have the calculation happening on the fly. Great. Now we want to filter only to the cups that are from Germany. So if we write in some functionality to filter only the cups that are from Germany, we're not supposed to see the cups that are from Mexico, USA, or China. Again, you go back to your list and you say BB cups to list where the cups that are only of a type that is from Germany are the cups that I want you to display. Okay, and where is supposed to return an enumerable. Should be perfectly fine. Let's try that out. Cups only displays the cups that are from Germany. So these are the controllers. Other than the fact that they are the functionality that glues together views to models. Considering that models also indicate the repository where these models are saved. So that's pretty much it. If you want to do something with how you store your data, with how you retrieve your data, with how you interact with your data, what you want to focus on are the controllers. I hope that was helpful, and that's pretty much it. We'll talk next week about the views, and then we'll see how we built our whole entire store app to sell and buy cups with all the other models that we talked about last module. Hopefully next week. Thank you for watching.